mga kababayan, and welcome to FILAM Civic Action. I'm your host, Ernie.
And I'm Bing. Today's conversation is a powerful one. We're talking about justice, dignity, and giving people a second chance.
Yes, Bing. Specifically, we're shining a light on Fresh Start.
Yes.
A groundbreaking initiative right here in Las Vegas that gives unhoused misdemeanor defendants a real pathway to reclaiming their lives.
Yes, Ernie.
Yeah.
And to help us understand the heart of this program, we're honored to welcome someone who helped shape it, former Judge Shannon Nordstrom. Welcome, Your Honor.
Thank you. Thank you, Bing. Thank you, Ernie. Thank you for having me here today.
Yeah, let's dive right in.
Okay.
What exactly is Fresh Start, Judge Nordstrom, and how did it come about?
Thank you. So in a nutshell, Fresh Start was a program to help individuals experiencing homelessness get the resources they needed to overcome their barriers and get back to being contributing members of our community.
Yes.
So in a nutshell, that's what it is. And it started back in kind of the end of 2018 when I started with municipal court.
It's been a while.
The hearing
7
commissioners.
years.
Years now.
And at that time, I was handling solely traffic cases. And I would see individuals come in who had traffic citations with the court and they weren't able to pay or do the work programs. And so I would see them over and over. And I started asking questions like, what's going on? What's happening? Why is it you're having trouble, complying with the court's orders and what they've agreed to? And what I discovered was that quite a few of them were either on the verge of homelessness or experiencing homelessness. And so what I tried to do is connect them with the resources they needed to get back on the right track. Now, it was quite an endeavor. I didn't know at the time, and I had never worked with the homeless population. So what we did was we put their payment of the fines and fees on hold so they didn't have to worry about paying or doing work program, and they weren't at risk of going to jail because they wouldn't go into warrant. And instead, their obligation became coming back and reporting to me the progress on working with our community partners. Now, it didn't come together straight away the first time. So I tried one path initially. I wasn't getting the results I wanted. I tried another and another. And eventually, I found what worked. And that was I had gone out to our community and built relationships with a variety of community partners, those who worked in the homelessness space. And I asked them if they would come into my courtroom so that I could connect them with the participants of the program directly. So that warm handoff that we just out, because sending them somewhere just wasn't working.
Yeah.
So we brought those community partners into the courtroom, and they included different nonprofits. It included the MCOs, so the managed care organizations that handled the Medicaid for those experiencing homelessness. And it really provided, it was the magic, really. It was the magic that we needed. And so they got connected right there. So they met someone like you, Ernie, who cared about them.
Right.
And oftentimes when they came into court in this situation, they didn't have much hope left. And so it really was very powerful to have that personal connection, someone who really wanted to help them aside from just the judge sitting on the bench, right, in the black robe, which can be intimidating. And a lot of people don't believe that you really want to help.
Of course, that's terrifying.
Right. So we tried to soften it
I'll
up.
be like, what?
Yes. And so the courtroom really isn't the place they expected to get help. And so we started that, and the benefit of having the community partners right there was that so a lot of times when a person is working through the different resources that we have, they don't exactly understand the whole process.
Okay.
And so they may very well be working on obtaining their birth certificate or working on getting housing, but they don't know the whole process. But with the community partners there, they were able also to stand up and give me an update on exactly where they were in the process, what we were working on, and really just articulate the good work that they were doing.
Right.
So that was the first program. That's how it all started. A lot of our participants faced food insecurity. And so I was sure that we had snack bags with food so that when they came into court to see me, that they had some food and some water that they could leave with, along with some other supplies that we eventually ended up providing for them.
Yes, dear.
And so once They obtained stable housing and stable income.
Wow.
We put them on a 6-month broad stand of trouble order, so they couldn't get in any sort of trouble. They would come back and see me at the end of that. And if they still had that stable housing and stable income, I would vacate their fines and fees, close their cases, and send them off with a fresh start. That way, they were now stable on their feet, and they weren't burdened with their fines of
Such a nice program.
So that's like a
how
6-month
it
trial
started.
period
Well,
for
for
them to
some,
do real good.
yes, it was 6 months for them to maintain the housing and maintain their income and whatever that income was. For some people, it was achieving Social Security disability. For some, it was reinstating their benefits. For some, it was getting the job in the community. So it varied, right? Because everybody's different. Everyone's situation is different. But that program was very successful.
Very interesting.
So Judge, that's the first program, right?
Yes.
Tell us about the second program.
Okay, so,
So there's a second program.
There was, yes, there was a second program. So the initial program with traffic court was very successful. And I was out, this was during the time when the court was closed. A lot of things were closed during COVID in May of 2020. I went out and did a ride along with Metro's Hot Team. They were one of our community partners. And one of the officers there said, we sure wish we could send some of these individuals to your Fresh Start program because we love what it does and we love the results. So fast forward, I went back to the court, back to my mentor judge, and spoke to him to see what it was we could do. And for being a court that involves the criminal misdemeanors, so not just traffic, but the other criminal offenses we had at the court for these higher level of individuals facing homelessness was really a much bigger undertaking. And so it involved Metro, it involved the city attorney's office, it involved the public attorney's office, and then of course the court.
Yes.
So Judge Kearns was my mentor judge, and he was responsible for creating several of the other specialty courts we had.
Yes.
So he helped me put together a plan, and we put together that plan, and we obtained approval from the other judges, and we implemented it on a pilot basis.
Yes.
But in order to do that, this is one of my favorite parts of the whole process, really. I needed those community partners, right, who are coming into my courtroom. Well, at that time, they only came once every 6 weeks for about 3 days in a week.
Oh.
Except now, I was going to need them every other Thursday afternoon.
Oh, I see.
And so one day after court, I went to them and they said, okay, I have this big idea. Here's what it is. And I said, but I can't do it without you. I need you to come every other Thursday afternoon in addition to what you're doing now. What do you think? Do you know what happened?
They did.
They started clapping.
Oh, wow.
They started clapping.
Wow.
They were all in. It was such a blessing because we could not have done it without them.
So awesome.
And that's how the second program started. And those individuals, when they successfully completed the program, their cases were dismissed. And again, stable housing, stable income, but these were higher level offenses, right? People who needed more help, who had more barriers, sometimes more difficult barriers. And it just really was a way to give them a new chance at life.
Yeah, very inspiring indeed.
Nice. So just an aside, Judge Kern is a Filipino-American judge.
He sure is.
Oh.
He sure is.
Yeah.
Yes.
So anyway, Judge, so instead of punishment, it offers a path to healing and progress, right? Without imprisonment.
Yes, it transformed lives. And it doesn't mean that they didn't ever go to jail, because that was always on the table. And sometimes people did go to jail. If they broke the rules in a significant way, then they could do a couple days in jail. If they didn't comply, they could serve out their sentence. But this was an alternative to jail that they had to choose. Both programs were voluntary.
I just can't imagine me being a judge, because there's always a human side to everything, right? So Judge Nordstrom, what was it like working daily with the defendants in the Fresh Start court? I mean, it must be really
So
hard.
for me,
Yeah.
it was very fulfilling.
Okay.
Filled my heart. because I really had an opportunity to help people, to help people and help them get, and we were a team. It wasn't just me. We had a large team, all the courtroom personnel, all the community partners, right? So many different parts of the team. So it was not just me. The public attorney, the city attorney, everyone had to participate. So it was definitely a team effort with our community partners. But it just, you could see, if you just sat in court and watched it, you could see the difference it made in the lives of these individuals.
So inspirational, right?
Very, very inspirational.
Yeah.
So this is like an alternative to going to prison, right? So were there any moments that really stuck with you, Judge, that you can share with us?
And so you're the best.
I have several, really. Those times. One of the things about this path, most of our defendants suffered from substance use disorder and or mental health issues.
That's hard.
Right? So they're very complex. And sometimes you want it for them more than they want it themselves. But they're the ones that have to do the work.
Correct.
And I had some really terrible days sometimes when we had to close out participants that you just really believed in. You really wanted it for them, but they weren't ready. And those days were really tough. And sometimes I would just have to take a break and go back in my chambers and let it all out and then go back with my judge face. But so I had those days, but I also had really, really great days. When someone shows up with a certificate that they just finished like vocational training or they just, completed something and they're just so proud of themselves.
It's like graduation day.
It is.
Right?
It is.
Yes.
And then the graduation's a whole nother story.
I have one quick question though, Judge. Were there defendants who just kept on coming back? As in, kept on committing the
You're saying repeaters?
and then that you would see them again and you're like
In the context of the Fresh Start programs, we didn't see that because the programs were voluntary. And so if they chose not to participate in the program, then I wouldn't then handle their case.
okay.
So,
Yeah,
so for those listening, Judge, who are not familiar with how the court system works, can you walk us through how someone enters the program?
So how individuals would get to Fresh Start, they would be referred to the program either by Metro or by another judge in our courthouse. And so however they came into the court, they would then be sent over to see us on one of our kind of screening days or maybe a Fresh Start court day. And they would meet with the program coordinator who would do an initial questionnaire, assessment to try to explain the program to them, get some basic information from them about where they were and if they were interested. And so we just kind of have this, small orientation or
a
vetting
dialogue
process.
something.
Right. And then if they were interested, they would get to come out and see me and watch the rest of court if they like. If it was like a full Fresh Start court day, they could do that. If not, then we'd schedule them to come back on one of those days so that they could see court and see everybody who was there to support them on their journey.
Oh, so it's really a major collaboration. Judges, public defenders, social workers,
Yes.
nonprofits. What else?
Yes. Well, the Medicaid service providers, they were there. So we had the justice liaisons for the Medicaid service providers there. That way they could have a conversation to know, okay, what does housing look like for you? What are the options? If they need this kind of treatment, where they can go for that treatment. So it was really
So it's a big
just
undertaking.
helpful having those Medicaid providers right there.
So we have a word for that in Filipino, Judge. It's called bayanihan. Where all these different sectors come together to help somebody to get better.
Yeah.
Yes. So what are some of the biggest misconceptions people have about unhoused defendants?
Well, and this would just be my opinion.
Yes.
But one of the misconceptions I would say is that everyone wants to be there. They want to be on the street. And I don't believe that's true. I think it is true for some individuals. Some people end up on the street. It's for everybody's different, right? It's a variety of circumstances. that get them there in the first place. And then sometimes circumstances keep them there and they don't know how to get out.
Right.
Or in some instances, one of our participants, he didn't use substances when he became homeless, but because he was homeless, he started using substances to cope with that.
Right.
And so it is very complicated.
Yeah.
But I believe that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions is that they want to be there or they don't care. And I don't believe that is true. But it is true that I think when you've been out there for a long time, that you lose hope, right? And your thinking changes. And so sometimes it's a layering process to speak to people and to listen to them and build that trust with them so that they believe that you really want to help them.
Right.
Before you can get them to take that step to try to help themselves.
That's what's really hard to judge others because everybody's fighting their own battles.
Right.
Yeah.
And you don't know.
Yeah. What about criticisms? The fresh start is soft on crime.
Right.
So I didn't really hear that myself. Maybe it was out there. I didn't really hear that. It was a program of many chances, but for a good reason. Because when you take someone who, let's say, has been living on the street for a while, and you place them either in treatment or housing or whatever it is they need, and then you're expecting them to follow the rules straight away,
Right.
they don't really know how to do that anymore. They haven't had to live by rules. They haven't had to live inside. And for some of them, it's just too much. And so we were a program of many chances because that's what they needed.
Right.
It's what they needed. But they still had, their incentive to comply with the rules of the program was that they didn't want to serve jail time.
Right.
So,
Well, Well, Judge, we love stories here in the show. Yeah, could you share a success story?
Sure.
Fresh start that still makes you smile.
Sure.
Yes.
Sure.
I like to hear some stories.
So I have two. I'll start with one, and if we have time, I can share the other.
Yes.
So, okay. So the first one is from the traffic program, and her name's Amani, and I'm sure she'd be fine with me sharing part of her story. She actually is a co-host of a podcast right now.
Oh, really?
She was in Fresh Start Traffic, and she found the Empowered program at Roseman University. And she worked that program, and she transformed her life.
Wow.
And I see her often. I see her
Even up to
often.
now, Judge?
Yes.
So you maintain that communication with her?
Yes. And one of the best things I think about her story, not only is she an amazing mom, but she earned her job at Empowered. She works for the program that helped her transform her life that she graduated from. She graduated from Fresh Start Traffic too, but this Empowered was the program that really fit her, and she works there now on her own merit.
What a
Not
success
because she
story.
was a graduate, on her own merit, and she's the co-host of their podcast.
That's great.
It
What a
is.
great outcome.
Can we invite her in one of our...
She would love to. I'm
In
sure
our
she
next
would love
episode, I knew we'll have her.
and she could share her
something.
full story with you.
How
But
about the other person that you
so
wanted
the
to
other one, Matthew.
Yes, Judge. Yeah.
So
Cynthia.
Matthew was in the specialty court program. So a higher level of individuals facing homelessness, higher risk, higher needs. And he had been on the street for a long time. And man, he was resistant in the program. He was resistant, but still doing enough to stay in, but resistant. Like he wanted to do things his own way. And a lot of times they do. But what he did, once he started working the program, he decided he wanted to go to school so that when he finished Fresh Start,
Yes.
he could have a good job.
Exactly.
And so he started going to UTI
Wow.
to be an electrician.
Wow. Nice.
He sure did. And do you know what? He graduated the top of his class.
Oh, what a success story.
The top of his class. And so it was such a pleasure when he would come into court and he could tell me, Judge, I just did, this on my class. Judge, I'm the top of my class right now. They asked me to speak at graduation, right? It's just, you just want to clap for them. And I think we did. And
what a success story. Yeah.
So, and he's doing really well. And he graduated a fresh start, the specialty court. He has been working as a union electrician ever since at one of the local casinos here. I'm still in contact with him. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah. What a success story for Judge, for that one person. Yes.
Real power of restoration, not just retribution.
Exactly.
So
I agree with you. Right.
Well, one thing I believe is good people make mistakes and good people make bad decisions or get caught up in bad circumstances.
And it's so easy,
It
right?
doesn't have to define you, right? You don't have to be defined by the mistakes you've made.
Yes,
Right.
yes, that's true.
So, Judge, how can people in Las Vegas and beyond support Fresh Start or similar efforts?
Yes, for sure. There's a lot of them there.
So we
A lot of
have
listeners who are
we
interested.
have a lot of really great nonprofit organizations here that work in the homeless and substance use realms. And they just do amazing work. So I would recommend figure out where or how you want to help and look up one of our local nonprofits. I could give you the names of a couple if you like, but
Yes.
okay, so Shine a Light would be one of the first ones that comes to my mind. They're doing great work in the homeless space. Tin High is doing great work with our youth who are at risk or dealing with substance use disorder. And so they provide great services for our youth at Tin High, and then Shine a Light for the homeless population. And those are my two favorites, I'll say.
And FILAM Civic Action International.
get-
Hopefully.
Our organization said
Get involved. Yes.
we will.
Get involved.
Yes. We are officers of FASA, so we're always there. We're ready. We all have, of course, a part to play in building a more compassionate city.
Right.
Las Vegas. And thank you for what you do. You are
Judge,
so the best.
any final words for our listeners?
Sure. So I guess what I would leave you with is that, life is about redemption. You don't need to be defined by the past. And, get out there and help someone.
Right.
Do something good. Yeah. Do good.
Well, thank you, Your Honor. And to our listeners, Judge Nordstrom is running for Councilwoman for Ward 2 in Las Vegas.
For the city of Las Vegas.
And
Just imagine if you have a councilwoman like Judge Nordstrom, a public servant, who is so dedicated and very sincere. And that would change the city of Las Vegas.
Exactly.
That would be the day. So, for all the Filipinos out there, Filipino Americans, and also our American friends, please don't forget to support her candidacy.
Yes.
She will be a big and great addition to the city of Las Vegas.
Yes. And to our listeners, remember, justice isn't just about the law, it's about humanity. Let's keep showing up for each other. Mabuhay, and may we all find our fresh start.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
So much. Thank you for having me. It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Mabuhay, and may we all find our fresh start. Yes.
All right. Have a great day, great night from those people in Siargao. Maradona, Dim sa isa tanan di doon. All right. Thank you, Anbing.
Thank you, and to my friends in Cebu, mayong gabi, mayong butag, may good to sa inyong tanan. Until next episode.
Thank you so much. It was
Bye
a
now.
great episode.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you for coming. Yes.